Take a look at the phone in front of you right now. Chances are it's got a big screen, small bezels, a camera cutout of some sort, and it's made of metal and glass. But phones weren't always so homogenous. Over the past 15 years since the iPhone popularized touchscreen phones, we've seen our fair share of variety in this industry, and that includes a lot of technological dead ends, bits of tech that maybe at one point seemed promising, but were in time unceremoniously dumped. So that's what we're going to take a nostalgic look back over today, the tech that's mostly been left behind as phones have become increasingly generic glowing rectangles. Take a sec to subscribe to XDA TV and we'll jump into our top 3 picks for abandoned smartphone technology that needs to make a comeback. Before everyone decided that a hole punch in the screen was the only way to go, there were loads of creative solutions to one of the big conundrums of smartphone design, namely how do you ship a full screen truly borderless display and still have some sort of front-facing camera. Around 2018-19, quite a few higher-end phones featured mechanical pop-up cameras and sometimes even sliders that hid the selfie camera inside the phone or split the phone into 2 planes and let you slide up to reveal the camera. In the West, the most famous for these was probably the OnePlus 7 Pro, still the pinnacle of OnePlus design in my opinion. This thing still looks amazing today. The entire front was just pure uninterrupted screen, and this cute little periscope would pop out when you needed to take a selfie. In other parts of the world, the original Oppo Find X looked just as futuristic, with its pop-up mechanism that hid both the front and rear cameras, and even Samsung got in the rotating camera craze around this time with its Galaxy A80. My favourite take on this design though was the flip era of Asus's Zenfone series. Launched in 2019, this style of flip camera elegantly solved both the screen cutout problem and took the opportunity to take seriously improved selfie pictures. Because you could easily take photos with the main camera as opposed to a smaller selfie shooter, the Zenfone 6 took the best selfies in the world in 2019. And years later, it refined the formula with the Zenfone 7 Pro, giving a trio of flippable front faces. What was really cool about this is you could rotate at any angle between the front and the back. So if you wanted a lower angle of a pet or your kids, it was easy to just flip it forward 90 degrees. OnePlus of course moved to a traditional hole punch display in 2020 with the OnePlus 8, and Asus abandoned the flip camera in 2022 following a disappointing refresh in the form of the Zenfone 8 Flip the previous year. Speaking to insiders at Asus, it seems like it just wasn't possible to keep the flip camera around at the price they were aiming for with the Zenfone 9. Plus, the motor made securing against water and dust very difficult at Asus's chosen price point. Which kind of speaks to why we don't see this kind of phone camera today. While it solves the screen cutout problem, it introduces a whole bunch of other ones by relying on motors and other moving parts. In the end, when most people will accept phones with a screen cutout, it's just simpler and less of an engineering challenge to rely on that tried and true solution. It's really a shame that creative selfie solutions like this, and even more exotic offerings like having a whole second screen on the back of the phone, have basically all but died off. As recently as 2017, you'd still see a decent number of handsets outfitted in aluminium, as opposed to the almost ubiquitous glass backs that we see on almost every phone today. Examples include Google's Pixel 2 series, Huawei's P10, the Moto Z, as well as iPhones 5 through 7. Many of my favourite phones of all time have had metal on the back. The HTC One M7 was one of the first in the Android world to use a metal unibody, and it felt like a quantum leap forward in terms of build quality. That was followed by the M8 the next year with a smoother, more organic feeling metal enclosure. Picking up a metal phone just felt different. It had more heft, and the brushed finish of phones like those HTC models had a unique kind of hand feel. But a pair of technological necessities have conspired to kill off the metal smartphone over the past 5 years or so, because metal of course can interfere with those all-important electromagnetic waves. The first problem technology is wireless charging. It's a table stakes feature these days that's a lot more difficult to do in a phone with a metal back. It's not totally impossible. One recent example includes Google's Pixel 5, which used a metal body coated with a special bioresin finish and housed a super thin wireless charging coil inside that layer of resin. But it's a lot simpler to just put your charging coil behind a piece of glass. Next you've got 5G, which is an even trickier technical challenge because of the range of higher frequencies that it uses. To do 5G, and especially millimeter wave 5G in a phone with a metal unibody, it would need to be covered with a hilarious number of antenna lines. Again, the Google Pixel 5 manages to do this thanks to its bioresin finish, which hides the lines. I actually think the Pixel 5 looks perfectly fine, but you could definitely argue it doesn't look as premium as, say, the Pixel 7 Pro. So yeah, though it is a shame, barring some sort of major technological breakthrough that makes it easier and a lot cheaper to do 5G and wireless charging through an aluminium enclosure, the days of metal phones seem to be very much behind us. If you've only ever looked at phones in North America, you might have never come across a waterfall display. But in other parts of the world, this technology featured in a handful of flagship phones around 2019. The idea is an extension of the curved screens you see in a lot of current phones, only taken to the extreme. As the name suggests, it's a display that flows over the edges of the phone, like a waterfall. As well as looking cool in renders and promo reels, the benefit of this kind of screen is it gives you the impression of a much smaller side bezel. It's like you're just holding your content as opposed to a piece of physical hardware. I used the Huawei Mate 30 Pro a bunch around late 2019 and into early 2020, and yeah, I like this feature quite a lot. Because of the lack of space around the side for buttons, Huawei had to engineer a virtual volume slider on the side, activated with a double tap and slide gesture. Sounds awkward, but it actually worked really well. But there are some real downsides to this sort of display. Obviously, that sizable curved edge is a serious point of weakness if you drop the phone, much more so than a device with a less prominent curve. That's made worse by the fact there's only a tiny sliver of metal to hold onto on the sides, so you're more likely to fumble your grip and send the phone crashing to the ground. And there's the software angle here too. Not all apps are suited to having their content spill over the side of the phone. The Mate lets you add virtual borders to either side of the screen to avoid compatibility issues in certain apps, but what was really needed here was platform level support for this kind of display, so apps can know the waterfall display is there and not display buttons or other essential controls on it. Alas, that software support didn't happen, and waterfall displays ultimately didn't gain much traction beyond the start of 2020. You can definitely argue this kind of screen just isn't practical, and the same of course applies to the next logical step up from the waterfall display, wraparound displays. Xiaomi had planned to use one of these in its Mix Alpha, which is ultimately cancelled due to manufacturing difficulties. Still, it's an example of something different and undeniably futuristic, and it's a real shame nobody is able to carve out a niche with this particular type of display technology. Hit the comments, let us know which of these dead technologies you remember and which one you'd like to see make a return in the near future. I'd love to see some more creative solutions to taking selfies, so I'm really hoping someone resurrects the humble flip camera in the coming years. Be sure to subscribe to XDA TV for more tech nostalgia like this, but in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.